Hi everyone, this is Brad Evans with NVIDIA. So Serus asked us to come in and talk a little bit about our implementation that we did over at NVIDIA. The problem statement that we were trying to solve was really an issue of scalability. We manage our silicon BOMs, and our BOMs include die, substrates, memory, yields, and co-products. And we manage them in a vertical BOM fashion, where each individual build combination was its own BOM. So in the case where we release a new test program or a new flow, we'd have to update 20, 30, 40, 50 BOMs each time, which is not a very efficient use of our time. As the company grows and our product become more complex, we are seeing issues with being able to keep our master data real-time and accurate. So what we did is, in our evaluation process, we looked at Serus, who the solution they came with is a modular BOM structure, which we were really able to leverage to improve our data maintenance. With the modular BOM structure, we don't have to recreate the BOM every time we do something new. We can tweak and update the specific elements of the BOM that impact the changes we're making. The objectives of the project were to replace our existing tool, which we called BMT. It was an SAP-based tool that was homegrown at NVIDIA. We wanted to add functionality for doing multi-test inserts. This was always a big problem at NVIDIA, where if we had to do multi-temperature testing with different insertions at ATE, we'd have to have individual BOMs. We were using DAs to have that work. With Serus, we were able to link those together and have one continuous part chain to get us through our supply chain. So again, looking at a little more detail of the goals. The first goal came with it's master data management, and then it's our test release process, were two of the big areas we were trying to solve. Again, it was a new interface to replace our old tool, an easier to use, more user-friendly interface, easier data entry due to the modular part chain structure that we talked about. Scalable bin quantities is something where in our old tools at FT we were only allowed to have 4 output bins from our ATE program. Using Serus now, we can manage infinite number of output bins, which is important as we do our multi-test insertion flows. Change control and history tracking has really enabled us to develop metrics and find out where are we making most of our changes, who's making most of the changes, where are errors coming from, and how can we get to the root cause to solve those. That's been a real big improvement for us. Adding functionality for read processes, we talked about that briefly, where again we have 100% of our master data and BOM creation is now in Serus. The test release is a really big important part for us. The test release process, we can talk a little bit more, is integral to what we do. It's the main job of our product engineers is to create programs, have accurate programs, and get them to our test floor in a fast cycle time. When we're using multiple tools to get that done in the past, an NV task was our old web-based workflow system. You have one group managing the marking specs in one system. You have another group releasing the test program in a different system. Someone else is updating an Excel file to show the subcons, the co-products and outputs we want. It's really hard to get all that time together to make sure it's all accurate and to make sure everybody's doing their part. We now have the complete test release flow in Serus. It's initiated by a requester. We have a team that kicks off the ECO and it routes through the right steps. Everybody who should be approving and should be reviewing is now in the same workflow. And when that ECO completes, the final ECO completion is what sends out all the documentation. The BOMs go to Serus. At the same time, the test program goes to the subcons. At the same time, the build instructions go to the subcons. So now there's no chance of us releasing an ABR before a test program is ready, or releasing a test program and not having the marking spec there. That's been a big time saving for us and for our subcons. The benefits we see, and these can all be brought down to cost at the end because we're saving a lot of time and a lot of effort for our engineers to allow them to focus on more important areas of their job, which is actually getting shorter cycle times, higher yields, and not worrying about just punching data into systems and tracking who made what change and when it happened. Reducing cycle time and BOM creation and yield maintenance process. So again, that is owned by our product engineers, and when they're spending 20% of their day just inputting data to make changes, that's not a very good use of their time. We've now been able to shrink that time down significantly to the point where we can have a small focus group manage that for us and not have to have our PEs handle everything. Reduce number of engineering hours required to maintain data. Improve accuracy of yield forecast. So our yield forecasting is done at a SKU level. We have FT bin yields, bin fractions, and we have overall yields. When you have to manage that across hundreds of BOMs, it becomes a tedious task where the PEs and the owners of the yields would just do it only when they heard complaints and not on a proactive basis. Now with Serus, we're able to do the yield updates through a workflow. It's easier we have less BOMs to manage because it's not hundreds of individual BOMs, it's multiple BOMs that we can, modular BOMs that we can just sort of change the tree branches and not the trunk on everything. And so now people can do this in a shorter cycle time, and it enables them to be more proactive in their yield updates. Reduce ABR 807 errors due to integration of the test release and documentation. So we talked about this quite a bit now, but that's been a great savings for our subcons. Reduce number of DAs since all rework BOMs are now maintained in Serus. Ability to do BOMs with multi-insertion. Again, this was a huge thorn in our side, the multi-insert process, because again, this had to be done through DAs. It had to be done through multiple production order releases instead of one production release and an expected cycle time. And then ability to do BOMs and travelers for our SLT floor. The SLT floor is an NVIDIA-owned floor, whereas as a fabless company, we do not own our assembly and test. So now we can manage our SLT floor at the same level we manage our subcons and have all the data and all the tracking in one system and have a continuous process across our entire supply. So we looked at the KPIs already. You can see the way we were looking at our time to create and maintain bills of materials was at a multi-BOM rate. One BOM to one BOM in the old system and the current system is probably about the same. It's when you're maintaining multiple BOMs that you get to take advantage of the modular part chain, where we can take the same assemblies, same inputs, and we can just tweak the outputs. And so now you're just changing one piece of the entire part chain and not trying to recreate every single time you want to have a new co-product. ABR, MBR errors. We were getting probably about 60 a week. And if you can imagine how a subcon feels about getting 60 mundane errors a week that we have to change our build release, we have to reissue our ABR or our build instruction, that's painful. And so now we're looking to drive that down to zero. We're not at 100% zero yet, but we're much closer. And as we look at root causes and we tweak our processes, we believe we can get there. Number of DAs, again, as we said before, a DA is just not a good process. It means we're doing some deviation. We're outside the normal process. We can't track in our system as completely as we track with the normal production build, and it's just noise. And so driving those down to zero is a really important part for us, and we've seen huge gain in this just for the fact that we can do rework BOMs within our the Serus tool. And then cost of errors due to test program release and documentation timing. So an example of this would be I released a new test program, but I haven't released the latest build instruction showing the new co-product. The subcons can get confused in that point and mark a product wrong. It causes parts to go on hold as they try to clear up the documentation, and all of that costs NVIDIA directly. So we're looking at making some pretty big reductions in that.